Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy and coming up in the next 30 minutes. Russian forces make a sudden thrust into eastern Ukraine near the town of Dobropilya, a move being seen to have been carried out to mount pressure on Zelensky to cede land ahead of the Trump-Putin meet in Alaska. India's retail inflation falls to an 8-year low of 1.55% in July, down from 2.1% in June. Food inflation stays in the negative zone for the second straight month at minus 1.8%. The latest data says US consumer inflation remained steady in July, but underlying price increases picked up as Trump's tariffs ripple through the world's biggest economy. And India's Test captain Shubman Gill is named the ICC Player of the Month by cricket's global governing body for July after his stellar performance in England. But first up, Russia's defense ministry has released footage on Tuesday showing troops waving a Russian flag in the Ukrainian village of Yablunivka, claiming its capture on the 9th of August. The development comes as Russian forces make a sudden push near Dobropilya in eastern Ukraine, in what analysts say may be a move to pressure Kyiv into territorial concessions ahead of a planned meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Now, US President Donald Trump has described his upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting to gauge his ideas for ending the Ukraine conflict. He also insisted that both sides in the ongoing conflict will need to cede territory. Trump's statement was firmly opposed by Ukrainian President Zelensky and the EU bloc, which reiterated its demand to include Ukraine's interest in the peace talks. Ayushi Bhatnagar brings us more in this report.
US President Donald Trump on Monday described his upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting to gauge his ideas for ending the war in Ukraine, as European leaders rush to ensure respect for Kiev's interests, as Zelensky will not be in attendance.
I'm going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind. And if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO leaders and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first, and then I'll call them after. And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting, or I may say we can make a deal. Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
US President Donald Trump said Kiev and Moscow will both have to cede land to end the conflict in Ukraine, though Ukrainian President Zelensky and the EU have firmly ruled out ceding territory seized by force, while Trump remains a little bothered by Zelensky's stance.
I expect to have a meeting with Putin that I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason: to get rid of a war that somebody else started. Should have never happened. And if I could end it, great.
Meanwhile, European leaders and Zelensky plan to speak with Trump ahead of his summit with Putin in Alaska on Friday. Moscow hopes the upcoming meeting between Putin and Trump will help in normalizing the relations between the two countries. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Monday that there were no signs that Russia was preparing to put an end to its hostilities in Ukraine, rather accusing it of launching new offensive operations.
There was also a report from the intelligence and military command on what Putin is counting on and what he is actually preparing for, including military preparations. He is definitely not preparing for a ceasefire or an end to the war. Putin is determined only to present a meeting with America as his personal victory and then continue acting exactly as before, applying the same pressure on Ukraine as before.
In a virtual emergency summit of the European Union foreign ministers, EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas emphasized that any agreement must involve both Ukraine and the EU bloc. In a statement on Monday, the European Commission announced that Ukraine will receive 1.6 billion euros from profits earned on frozen Russian central bank assets, adding that the EU will work on a 19th package of sanctions against Russia and warned against concessions to Moscow. Meanwhile, 26 European heads of state and government said in a statement that Ukrainians must have the freedom to decide their future and that a diplomatic solution must protect Ukrainian and European interests. Ayushi Bhatnagar's report for DD India.
Now, a new United Nations report has found evidence of systematic torture by Myanmar security forces, including beatings, electric shocks, gang rape, and the removal of fingernails. The Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, that's the IIMM, identified high-ranking military commanders as perpetrators, though names were withheld. The report, covering July 2023 to June 2024, is based on 1,300 sources, including eyewitness accounts and forensic evidence. Victims included children, some detained as proxies for their missing relatives. In some cases, torture led to death. Myanmar's military junta has denied responsibility, blaming unrest on terrorists, and has ignored repeated UN requests for access and information. The country has remained in turmoil since the 2021 military coup, with ongoing civil conflict and mass detentions. The United States has extended a tariff truce with China by another 90 days. US President Donald Trump signed an executive order late on Monday, delaying the start of higher tariffs on Chinese goods until the 10th of November. The executive orders were signed hours before a 90-day halt of steeper levies between Washington and Beijing was due to expire. The US President, in a post on social media, confirmed that he has ordered a 90-day tariff truce to delay reimposition of higher levies on Chinese goods. He further wrote that all other elements of the agreement will remain the same. Now, the new order prevents US tariffs on Chinese goods from shooting up to 145%, while Chinese tariffs on US goods were set to hit 125%, rates that would have resulted in a virtual trade embargo between the two nations. While the United States and China slapped escalating tariffs on each other's products this year, bringing them to prohibitive triple-digit levels and snarling trade, both the countries in May agreed to temporarily lower them. As part of their May truce, fresh US tariffs targeting China were reduced to 30%, and the corresponding level from China was cut to 10%. Wall Street's main indices opened higher on Tuesday after data showed inflation rose broadly in line with expectations in July, putting the Federal Reserve on track to lower interest rates next month. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 75.4 points or 0.17% at the open to 44,050.53. The S&P 500 rose 21.7 points or 0.34% to 6395.17, while the Nasdaq Composite rose 122 points or 0.57% to 21,507.441. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a pivotal hour-long call on Monday, reinforcing BRICS' role in defending multilateralism against US tariffs. Lula, responding to Trump's anti-American label and tariff threats, rallied BRICS for a united stand. Xi emphasized BRICS as a global South consensus platform, with China and Brazil leading in unity. They explored new trade opportunities, especially in agriculture, as China absorbs Brazil's soybeans and coffee amid US tariff barriers. Xi hailed historic ties, urging collaboration on global challenges like Ukraine, signaling a robust BRICS counter to unilateral trade policies. Economists are beginning to detect early warning signs as US President Donald Trump's trade war has pushed up inflation, slashed US job gains, and slowed economic growth. Growth has slowed to an annualized 1.8% in Q2, far below the 3 to 4% Trump promised. Inflation is rising again, with core consumer price index up 3.6% year-on-year. Job creation has dropped below expectations for the second straight month. In July 2025, US consumers faced rising prices as import tariffs drove up costs for goods like furniture and apparel, pushing underlying inflation to its highest in 6 months, according to Goldman Sachs economists. The Labour Department's upcoming Consumer Price Index or CPI report, marred by data collection issues, reflects a 0.2% monthly rise, with core CPI climbing 0.3% due to tariff-sensitive items. Budget cuts and staffing shortages at the Bureau of Labour Statistics, worsened by President Trump's dismissal of its head, Erica McAntifer, have led to suspended data collection in several regions, raising global concerns about US economic data reliability. Food prices surged amid labour shortages from deportations, while pre-tariff inventories softened broader inflation spikes. As businesses pass on costs, consumers bear a third of the tariff burden, with fears of further increases looming. The Federal Reserve eyes a September rate cut, but global markets remain wary of escalating trade tensions. Pakistan's military said on Tuesday it had killed 50 Islamist militants along the border with neighbouring Afghanistan over 4 days in a restive southwestern region home to key Belt and Road projects. According to a statement, the militants were killed in an operation started on Thursday in Balochistan, where both Islamist militants and separatist insurgents demanding a bigger share of the province's mineral wealth operate. Independent analysts and militant groups say Pakistan's army routinely exaggerates the death tolls of such militants, a charge the military rejects. Meanwhile, militants killed at least 9 Pakistani soldiers in an attack in the country's restive southwestern Balochistan province. A senior official of the Washuk district said dozens of militants attacked a police station and a border force compound. More details are still awaited about this incident. Now, South Africa is set to submit a revised trade deal proposal to Washington in a bid to ease the hefty 30% tariff imposed by US President Trump on its exports last week. South Africa has said that the move follows months of unsuccessful negotiations to secure an agreement before Trump's deadline. The tariff, now the highest faced by any sub-Saharan African nation, has dealt a blow to Africa's largest economy, which counts the United States among its key export markets. German rescue ship the Sea-Watch 5 saved 73 migrants in 2 separate operations in the central Mediterranean on Monday. The first rescue unfolded in the dead of the night when 6 people were pulled from a boat in distress. Hours later, another operation brought dozens more to safety. According to UNHCR, while sea arrivals in Europe dropped by 24% in 2024 to about 200,000, the danger remains stark. At least 3,500 people died or went missing last year on routes to Spain, Italy, Malta, Greece and Cyprus. In a first-of-its-kind initiative, 35 Sri Lankan government school Hindi teachers completed a 15-day training program at the Kendriya Hindi Sansthan or the KHS in India's Agra. The teachers shared their experiences at a special event in Colombo on Monday, highlighting both academic and cultural enrichment. The training was organized by the Swami Vivekanand Cultural Centre, Colombo, in collaboration with Kendriya Hindi Sansthan, and marked the first such program for Hindi teachers selected from 88 schools across Sri Lanka. India's Deputy High Commissioner Dr. Satyanjal Pandey praised the participants as ambassadors for India-Sri Lanka cultural ties.
You are the real ambassadors of not just India but India, Sri Lanka and of our civilizational history. So we rely totally on you to spread this friendship, to spread this brotherhood and sisterhood between India and Sri Lanka.
And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. In a big push to make in India, the government approves 4 new semiconductor projects with an outlay of over $500 million US. Another boost for space startups in India, a consortium led by Pixel Space has been picked to launch 12 cutting-edge Earth observation satellites. And Namrata Batra wins India's first Wushu medal at the World Games in China.
Geopolitics and trade deals.
Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered a video message during the 18th International Olympiad on Astronomy and Astrophysics being held in Mumbai. In his message, Prime Minister Modi said that India is deeply committed to nurturing scientific curiosity and empowering young minds.
India is deeply committed to nurturing scientific curiosity and empowering young minds. Over 10 million students are understanding STEM concepts through hands-on experimentation in Atal Tinkering Labs. This is creating a culture of a learning and innovation.
India's retail inflation eased to an 8-year low of 1.55% in July, down from 2.1% in June, according to official data released on Tuesday. This is the first time since January 2019 that retail inflation fell below the 2% mark. The moderation in retail inflation extends a 6-month streak of sub-4% inflation, with the average since April holding below 3%. Food inflation remained in negative territory for the second straight month, with the index recording a deeper deflation of 1.8% compared with minus 1.1% in June. The decline was largely led by lower prices for pulses, vegetables, cereals, eggs, sugar and transport costs. July food inflation reading is the lowest since January 2019. Now, India's cabinet approved 4 more semiconductor projects under India Semiconductor Mission. These projects will come up in Odisha, Punjab and Andhra Pradesh with an outlay of 4,600 crore INR, which is roughly a little over $500 million under India Semiconductor Mission. These 4 proposals approved today are from 6M Continental Device India Private Limited (CDIL), 3D Glass Solutions Inc. and Advanced Systems in Package ASIP Technologies. 6M and 3D Glass will be set up in Odisha, CDIL is located in Punjab and ASIP will be set up in Andhra Pradesh.
आज 4 सेमीकंडक्टर प्रोजेक्ट्स अप्रूव हुए हैं, 2 उड़ीसा में, 1 पंजाब में और 1 आंध्र में। आप जानते हैं कि 2022 में जब सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन लॉन्च हुआ, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का दूरदर्शी नेतृत्व है, जिसके तहत उन्होंने एक लॉन्ग टर्म स्ट्रैटेजी के तहत काम चालू किया और कंप्लीट इकोसिस्टम पे ध्यान देने का प्रधानमंत्री जी का हमेशा मार्गदर्शन रहा। और साथ ही साथ जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग अपनी बहुत अच्छी आगे बढ़ी है, उससे भी सेमीकंडक्टर की डिमांड लगातार बढ़ती जा रही है।
And the cabinet has also approved the phase 1B of Lucknow Metro Rail project, Uttar Pradesh, with a corridor for a length of 11.165 kilometers with 12 stations, 7 underground and 5 elevated. On operationalization of phase 1B, Lucknow city will have 34 kilometers of active metro rail network.
लखनऊ मेट्रो का फेज 1B बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। लखनऊ बड़ा शहर है, वहां पर मेट्रो की बहुत जरूरत है, तो यहाँ पर हुआ 5,801 करोड़ रुपए से। तो इस फेज से काफी बड़ी संख्या में पैसेंजर्स मेट्रो का लाभ उठा सकेंगे और नागरिकों के लिए बेनिफिट होगा। इस प्रोजेक्ट को 5 साल में कंप्लीट किया जाएगा। उत्तर प्रदेश मेट्रो रेल कॉरपोरेशन, जो कि भारत सरकार और उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार का एक जॉइंट वेंचर है, वो इस प्रोजेक्ट को एग्जीक्यूट करेगा।
Now let's talk about a giant leap for India's space story. Pixel Space India will lead a 1,200 crore INR mission to launch 12 cutting-edge Earth observation satellites. Built and launched in India, they'll keep an eye on our climate, borders and future, putting us firmly in the Global Space Leadership League. Take a look.
In a historic leap for India's space sector, InSpace has announced the selection of a Pixel Space India-led consortium to establish the nation's first fully indigenous commercial Earth observation satellite constellation. Partnering with PeerSight Space, Satcha Analytics India and Dhruva Space, the consortium will invest over 1,200 crore rupees to design, build and operate 12 state-of-the-art satellites with panchromatic, multispectral, hyperspectral and microwave SAR sensors. These satellites will provide high-resolution data for climate change monitoring, disaster management, agriculture, marine surveillance, national security and more, reducing India's reliance on foreign sources. Under the public-private partnership model, the government will offer strategic and policy support, while the consortium will own and operate the system. Over the next 4 years, the constellation will be deployed in phases, placing India among the global leaders in space-based geospatial intelligence. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
And let's now talk about sports. Indian Test team captain Shubman Gill has been awarded the ICC Player of the Month award for July. The 25-year-old cricketer had a stellar run in his debut series as Test captain, scoring a total of 567 runs at an average of 94.5 in July. The tally includes a double century and 2 centuries, making him the leading run scorer of the period. This is Gill's 4th Player of the Month honour from the ICC, having won previously in February this year and in January and September 2023. Indian women's football star Darima Chibbar hailed the Subrata Cup as an excellent platform for nurturing young players. In an exclusive chat with DD India's Narayan Singh, she highlighted the vital role international exposure plays in shaping the careers of budding footballers.
It is the 64th edition of the Subrata Cup, and right now I am joined by the star Indian footballer Dalmia Chibbar. Dalmia, the way, the legacy of this Subrata Cup, you see you to be an alumnus of this prestigious cup. So how you look so far the Subrata Cup has done, given multiple stars to the Indian football?
I feel like I mentioned before in the press conference, it is a platform that every school child has the opportunity to play and showcase their abilities. Otherwise, not every school child, kid has a opportunity or the privilege to play in the club sport and be able to showcase their talent at youth level. But this, like Subrata Cup, gives them that opportunity while they're studying, while they're involved in schools, to be able to showcase their talents. And I feel like it has developed. I played in 2011. It's been almost 14 years now. So it has come a very long way. It started as a tournament which was only based in Delhi to it has moved around India. And there are so many teams that we see across India and international coming in and playing now. So definitely, we're headed towards the right direction, and we're getting more and more girls and boys at a very young age to play the sport.
International exposure for the young footballers is a very key and important aspect. And talking about Subrata Cup, do you think that still we need to invite some European football teams and the South American football teams here at the Subrata Cup to make the standard at a different level?
I think we have seen that increase, and I am sure with time we will see that increase as well. So definitely international exposure is very necessary because tougher competition, newer opponents, and we already have a few and a lot of newer international opponents coming as well. So I'm sure we will see more international teams coming and traveling to India for the
Subrata Cup is the legacy of the Indian football, and it is the most prestigious inter-school football tournament in Asia. And we are hoping that the kind of platform our young footballers are getting through the Subrata Cup, in the coming times we will see more future stars of Indian football. With camera person Sunil, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
And India's wushu player Namrata Batra has scripted history on Tuesday. She has become India's first ever wushu medalist at the World Games held in Chengdu, China. Namrata clinched silver in the women's 52 kg category, going down to her Chinese opponent in the final. Earlier, Namrata defeated Philippines' Krizan Faith Collado 2-0 in the semi-finals to assure India of its first ever gold World Games medal in the sport of wushu. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code on the screen, download the app. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.